everybody was ugly or something like that. So they chased her out of town. It sounds crazy, but that's basically what it's saying. Chased her out of town, and her father was cool with the people in the Spittima clan who basically took her in. So her father's friend took her in, and that's where she met her husband, who is Zoroaster's father, or who would become his father, Porochaspa, which means many horses. You have Zoroaster's name supposedly mean one or two things. It either means golden light or yellow camel. So they're trying to really break down that language to see exactly what it means, but it probably means golden light more than yellow camel. But his father and that clan, they were horse breeders. That's what their clan was about. The Spittimas was horse breeders. They bred horses. That's what they was known for. So you have the story of his mom being chased out of her town, basically her home, going to her dad's friend's home where she meets her future husband. They have 5 sons. One of them is Zoroaster, the founder of the religion of Zoroastrianism. Now, Zoroaster, as a kid, was basically defiant. Not defiant like in a bad way. He had a lot of questions. So he didn't really believe in the faith that they was, raised up to believe in, which we don't know exactly what that faith was, but we know they believed in Asha, which Asha is basically like divine, guidance. So it's like the divine plan. So they believed in that, and you had his first teacher come in and teach him. His teacher name was Berzin Kuris, and his teacher taught him about the Asha. And Asha, again, is truth. It's like the divine plan. So Asha is something that, set well with Zoroaster, but when you look at the world and everything that was going on, he had a lot of questions. So as a kid, when, he would go out, the priest would try to teach him and talk to him, he would always ask them intelligent questions. So he would always question everything they were saying as a kid. It talks about in the Gathas, we'll get into that. In the Gathas, you have a bunch of verses, which the Gathas is basically like the books and verses, talking about how, they would send him home because he would ask them questions or he would defy their priestly authority, and they would send him home and, come and talk to his parents and say, hey, he's not believing, he's not following what we're teaching. And he asked so many good questions, valid questions, and he was real critical. And he rebutted everything they said. Every time they had to say something, he had a good rebuttal. He had rebuttals that were so good, it caused a lot of people to question their faith. It caused one chief priest his life. One of the chief priests was so perplexed. He was so messed up by the questions that young Zoroaster was presenting to him that he eventually died because he said he couldn't really handle the questions that he was asking him because it basically destroyed his whole way of life. So you had him at this young age, Zoroaster, super smart, asking questions. And by the age of 15, he was basically already a priest. So he was already a priest and he was already studying and learning and still had doubts. By the age of 20, he left home. He basically gave up his inheritance and left it to his 4 brothers and said, I'm out. I'm going to figure out what this whole thing is about. Don't care about money. I'm gone. So he sought out, wandering town to town, just looking at the way things were. And more as he wandered, he had questions. He doubted his faith because he's seen the evils in the world. He's seen the good things. He's seen old age. He's seen young age. He's seen, the growth and how people grow and how everything had a dual nature to it. So his life is basically the same as Siddhartha, Buddha. So when you look at the story of Buddha, it's very, very similar to the story of Zoroaster. As far as, Buddha, remember, same thing. He was a rich kid. He went out finally to see the world, and he's seen, old people, young people, people rich, people poor, and it caused him to doubt everything. He could have just stayed home and had whatever he wanted and assumed the throne, but those things bothered him to the point that he became Buddha. So it's amazing. It's the same type of story as we're going to see as we go on. These stories that we find in the more well-known religions are the same as Zoroastrianism because they all piggyback off each other. So you have with Zoroastrianism. We had Zoroaster going out, seeing all these things and seeing the evils and everything like that. And it really messed with him that he had so much doubt in his faith. So he called that doubt. He called that doubt and he called that evil that basically messed with him every day and gave him evil thoughts and so on and so forth. He called it Angra Mainyu. And Angra Mainyu is basically like the devil of Zoroastrianism. You have Ahura Mazda would be God, but Asha can also be considered like, God, but it's not a being. It's just like Asha is just, divine plan or the divine order of the universe. Asha. So you have Asha, you have Ahura Mazda, you have Angra Mainyu. And there's a bunch of other stuff that you'll see in Zoroastrianism. We're not going to get into all that because I don't want nothing to take away from the overall understanding of this. So he called it Angra Mainyu, right? So in the Gathas and the Gathas, you also have a story of Zoroastrianism, or Zoroaster, excuse me, when he's going out and trying to figure this whole thing out. He's wandering, he's in a desert, and he has Angra Mainyu come and tempt him. We know where that comes from. We know where we find that at. We find it in the Bible with the devil coming to tempt Jesus. We see where they got that from. And understand that, this is old. Stuff is older than Christianity. So we know which one came first. So, or they could have came around the same time when it was creating all this shit back in AD times. We don't really know. But we know that these stories do piggyback off of each other and have the same type of stuff. But deep down, it's the same thing I'm going to explain to you guys here. But he was tempted by Angra Mainyu, the devil, and offered him all this stuff and wanted him to basically give praise to the way the world was, which is something he couldn't do. So you also have around this time, he's 20, he's going out seeing the world. He has all these questions, he's learning so much. But then it says here, at the age of 20, Zoroaster is said to have left his home to meditate in the cave. His first vision of Ahura Mazda, Lord of Life and Wisdom, was received when he was 30. 7 other visions, 6 communications with Ahura Mazda's powers, later known as the Amisha Spinta, which we'll talk about, Immortal Shining Ones, or Benevolent Immortals. And a homiletic dialogue followed the first vision over a period of years. Stop right there. What does that sound like? Same thing happened with Islam and Muhammad. He went into a cave where he heard the voice of Allah speaking to him in Arabic. And over a period of, 23 years, he broke down the Quran and all these teachings and everything to him. And that's how we get the Quran. And we get, Islam and the religion and so on and so forth. It's the same stuff. So we got to see, when you go back to Zoroastrianism, a lot of you guys know how a lot of this stuff is coming from Zoroastrianism, and how the modern, 3 main religions took from ancient religions to give us what we have. So as Zoroaster started to get these teachings, he would go out and teach. I think the first person he converted was his cousin. So he would go out and teach these, these different aspects of Ahura Mazda. And he wanted people to know that, Asha was a lot more to Asha, and that Ahura Mazda was this overall god, of Asha, which Asha, again, is divine order. And you had this overall god, which was Ahura Mazda, which when you break it down to understand, Ahura Mazda would basically be consciousness, which every god, Allah, God, so on and so forth, really is talking about consciousness, which is the overall God. So he wanted people to understand that Ahura Mazda had basically 7 aspects to him. And from the great mind, or from the mind of Ahura Mazda, you have the Vahishtra Mingna, which basically is talking about the thoughts into being. It's also known as the active will, or the bountiful spirit, or Holy Spirit. So this is an aspect of Ahura Mazda. So from this, you have 6 lesser parts of Ahura Mazda, and they're split up into 2 groups: the male part and the female part. So the masculine part and the feminine part. So you have these 6 different aspects, right? So the male part, you have Asha, again, which is divine order. You have good mind, and you have sovereignty. That will make up the male part, or this big divine part of Ahura Mazda. So you have the feminine aspect of this, which would be the Armati, which we'll talk about that in a second. You have Armati, you have perfect thought and well-being, and you also have immortality. So one of the main reasons why a lot of people want to get into this, because you can see what it's getting into. You have masculine and feminine, plain and simple. These coming together gives us the one, the true power, the true essence of us, male and female. So when you understand that you have these male and female parts going back to one mind, and that one mind is thought into being. So having these aspects of yourself, or understanding these aspects of yourself, will basically give you the power of God, which of course, again, when you break it down, you are God, and understanding how, you can manifest, and understanding how meditation plays a big part in all of this. So again, it's all going back to one divine truth. And that's one of the meanings of Ahura Mazda, and one of the meanings of the Asha is this divine order and its truth, and how everything is about truth, which you'll see a lot when you get into Zoroastrianism. So you have the masculine and feminine aspect of it, all basically breaking down to this divine truth. So in his teachings, in his research, what he wanted to do, his mission was to get the knowledge of the overall truth. He wanted the knowledge of this is the truth, like the truth of it all. As I've shown you guys with Ma'at, that's what it was about, truth. And it's not a coincidence you have Ma'at that's representing truth, and you see her with the wings. And when you look at Zoroastrianism, and you guys seen this before, this is the Ferahar. And this is the symbol we see when we see Zoroastrianism. The Ferahar has its own meaning as well. So we see Ma'at with her wings spread, representing truth, divine order. And we see the Ferahar representing Zoroastrianism, that's talking about the same thing. So you have the wings here on the Ferahar, and they have 3 rows symbolizing 3 main principles of the religion. So you have good thought, you have good words, and you have good deeds. And then the tail part is another important part. It basically represents the opposite. You have bad thoughts, bad words, and bad actions. So you have to, you look at it, you have good thoughts. Good thoughts translates into good words. So you have a good thought and you speak those good thoughts into existence. And those good thoughts or good words leads to good deeds. So you say something good, or you think of something good, you say it, and then it comes into being. So it's going back to the Asha. It's going back to Ahura Mazda, what it represents, thoughts into being. All comes together. I mean, Zoroastrianism is super deep when you get into it. So you have these thoughts, and you have these words, and you have these words turning into good deeds, and it's about the balance. It's about understanding that these are the things that's basically going to get you where you need to go. And you have to watch out for the bad thoughts and the bad words and the bad deeds, but understand that it's a balance between the two. So all throughout, same thing with Buddhism, you have to understand the balance. And that's what is being taught in Zoroastrianism, understanding the balance between the good thoughts and the bad thoughts, and how that leads to bad words and bad deeds and so on and so forth, and how this can cause your demise. And having a conscious understanding that one of the main teachings they have in Zoroastrianism is that you are responsible for your fate. Nothing else is. You are responsible for your actions. You have to choose. When we look at our life in a way, everything is set up. I mean, it's basically, it's life. It's how things are. You have choices in life. And that's one of the things I try to teach people, that you have to choose. Life is choice, right? Plain and simple. The program is choice. You have to choose. There's always going to be good. There's always going to be bad. You are smack dab in the middle. You can go left. You can go right. The program is choice. Life is choice. You choose which path to go.